around intermediate and advanced topics and techniques for Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. You'll see with my background, I'm currently the head of our Agile Center of Excellence at Bristol Myers Squibb Pharmaceutical Company. I also teach Agile at Villanova University in the United States here. And I write articles, and I'm part of the PMI community as well. I've been a past president of our local chapter. And I've been working in Agile for perhaps 15 to 20 years now. I've been doing Agile for many, many years, and project management for many years. Part of what I'm going to share today is, as I mentioned, intermediate and advanced topics. Many things that we learn from an Agile perspective, it's focused on the mechanics. It's focused on the follow the steps, follow the directions. But to be more effective, to have a bigger impact, I believe there's other techniques that we learn from experience. And there's some of the things I like to share today. I will say, use at your own risk. This is cautionary. Some of these techniques may work, they may not work. That's okay. Part of Agile is to learn and try new things, see what works, learn from the elements that do not work. And these are some of the techniques that I've discovered over the years. They do work in some companies, they don't work in every place. The more advanced the techniques, I think the harder it is to write one version or one copy of a book. Excuse me. I talked a little bit about my background. I have been in pharmaceutical companies for nearly 20 years. I've also worked with music companies, travel companies, banking, insurance. I did consulting for some time, and also have been an employee for many, many times. So what I like is techniques like Agile fit in many different industries around the world. And in many of those companies, I was initially brought in to do something called project recovery effort. And in the early days of Agile, I started by coming in, figuring out what was the immediate problem. I had daily meetings to talk with the team and talk with management. And I asked the question, what's the one or two problems that if I solve first, you'll give me more time to solve the other problems? So this was my journey 20 years ago, moving down project recovery efforts. And when I started to read and hear about Agile, I said, oh, this sounds very similar. Some similar approaches. I learned more about Agile and became more involved in that industry. One of the largest teams I've worked on was about 200 people. We had 5 major vendors such as SAP, IBM, 3 other vendors. And we had people located in 7 sites around the world, 5 different time zones. And the project was around 120 million US dollars. So very large scale, very large involvement. Some of the techniques I learned, this was a project that was supposed to take 2 years. We delivered in 9 months, much, much faster than expected. And this is where I've helped to learn and develop many of these techniques. So as I said, a lot of different background, a lot of different experience. I've also, I've been very fortunate where I've been able to travel. I've been able to travel quite a bit in my career. And I've been to Crève, which is great. Been many different places throughout the world. And what I enjoy is working with people from different areas, different backgrounds, different cultures, and seeing how Agile is very universal. One of the things I did learn, I'm just setting up a little bit of the background, is certifications are not enough. Yes, they're important. Yes, they're very valuable. But if we only stop at just the training class, I don't think we've learned enough. part of what we need to do is have experience, learn, keep asking questions during problems, during challenges, what's working, what's not working. And there's some of the examples I'll be sharing today. So very important that I have people who come and interview, and when I bring in more Agile coaches, they only want to talk to me about their certification or what they learned in class. And I say, well, but what did you do with it? How did you apply it? What were some of the challenges that you had? What are some of the successes? They're the types of questions that I ask. And I want to see that the person is thinking. Are they thinking about why do we do these techniques? Many times I'll have people say, well, we did retrospectives for 3 months. We don't have any new ideas. We're just going to stop doing that. And I try to get them to explain, well, why do we do the retrospective? Why is it important? So I'm going to spend some time and talk about that section. To me, Agile is very misunderstood in the industry. Many people think of it as only software development. It's really not. It's much more based on people talking to each other, people sharing, building trust, interacting, and talking. It's not something that we just simply follow the directions. I talk about there's a difference between doing Agile and being Agile or thinking Agile, the mindset. I have an engineering background, electrical engineering, as well as certainly have worked in software and IT for many years. So my joke is Agile allows many of these software developers who typically work by themselves. It's a technique to help them talk to each other, talk to the customers. That's where the real power comes from, is the shared understanding of what it is we're building. I've also been working with, in my company, Bristol Myers Squibb, we're implementing Agile in non-IT organizations. I was just talking to our president of the manufacturing division, which is 9,000 people around the world. He wants to roll out Agile for all 9,000 people over the next few years. So we're talking about techniques of leadership and management, making decisions, using Kanban boards, using these techniques, not just for, has nothing to do with software. In this case, it's about how the team dynamics work and how they interact. So to me, Agile is much more than just software, DevOps, all the other components, automated testing. It's changing the way that we think and changing the way that we get engaged. We add our thoughts, we add our energy to the work that we're doing. As a coach, as Scrum Masters, I ask Scrum Masters, start by focusing on the team. And I have a phrase I use all the time. I say, our job is not to implement Agile. Now think about that. I'm the head of the Agile Center of Excellence. My job is to implement Agile for the entire corporation of Bristol Myers Squibb around the world. But my first statement is, we are not here to deliver Agile. It sounds crazy. I tell my coaches, I tell my teams, focus on the team dynamics, focus on how do the teams communicate, how does information move through the team. And what I say is we focus on the dynamics, we focus on helping teams talk better, communicate better, work faster, better quality, better outcome. We just happen to use Agile techniques. Our goal is not to implement Agile. Our goal is to improve the teams using Agile techniques. So it becomes a phrase within our organization. So one of the first areas that I want to talk about is working with those teams. Are they talking with each other? Do they communicate well? Are they interacting? And what I ask the coaches is just observe, come in, just understand the dynamics. Who's talking, who's not talking? Where are the challenges? What are the frustrations? And listen for that. They're the areas to start first. The majority of our teams, we focus on, well, who is the product owner? Does the product owner understand the role, the job? What about the team? Do they understand the commitment? Do they understand what they're being asked to do? So we're trying to figure out what type of training do we need for the team? What type of discussions do we need? In some cases, our first step has nothing to do with Agile. I was working with a software tool called ServiceNow. As part of the team, the implementation, we are merging two companies together, and the teams could not talk to each other. We had 4 vendors, and when they wanted to talk immediately, it took 2 days. Something is wrong with that. So the very first thing we realized is their systems were not all connected the right way. So the Agile coach worked with the account teams, got all of the accounts to work consistently. And within about 2 weeks, they were able to chat and talk to each other immediately in real time. Our sponsor was shocked. He was amazed at how much it helped the team actually start talking to each other. Instead of setting up formal meetings, they could just talk to each other immediately. Something that's just, to me, is very simple, very basic, but our 4 vendors all had different systems. Once we showed that improvement, then we were asked to say, well, what else can you do? Oh, well, let's talk about a stand-up. Let's talk about a retrospective. Let's talk about these other techniques. Let's see how we can help other aspects. There is no description of getting the accounts or systems to talk to each other. That's not written in any Agile book anywhere. But when I explain to our coaches, think about the team dynamics, the communications, we're going to find these problems. Let's go solve them. Because to me, it's still affecting the flow of information on the team. That is our responsibility. Part of it is helping the teams to be part of the process. Many times Scrum Masters want to be part of the process. And I explain to them, do not be part of the process. Let's have the team update the stories. Let's have the team update the information. Let the team, if they need more work, that person goes and grabs the next story themselves. These are very important because if we work in teams in many different time zones, it's critical that we're not waiting for someone in another time. If we have someone in India waiting for the Scrum Master in the United States, or waiting for a developer in Ireland, then we have a delay as we're waiting for the next person to come online and start to work. So if each person is owning their story, owning the responsibility, we're going to get a much faster result. My one team alone, we went from, there's a metric we use to talk about how fast we work called velocity. The one team was averaging 23 to 25 story points. By the time we were done in 3 months working with the team, they were averaging 113 story points per sprint. Dramatic increase. Many of the factors were because we asked the team to own their responsibility, own what they're working on. When we work with product owners, I asked the Scrum Masters to work with them. When you read the book, when you learn the material, they say only populate 1 sprint. We asked our product owners, think ahead by 2 or 3 sprints. Have the material ready so it simplifies the work. If the team is looking for something new, then it's very easy for them to do that. They can reach out, they can tap, they can understand what's happening. Just checking the chat to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Okay, good. By having 2 or 3 sprints ahead, what happens if, here's a question for you. What happens if the team finishes their work before the end of the sprint? Typically sprints are 2, 3, or 4 weeks. I personally prefer 2-week sprints. But if the team is finishing on day 7 instead of day 10, I ask the team, what do you do? Many times I get the response of, we don't have to do anything. We'll just sit back and wait 3 days to finish our work. Yep, I see the comments. Yes. Wrong answer. The answer is they should be, first off, are you asking your colleagues? Are you asking your friends? Do you need help to finish the existing work? Yeah, I see him saying for several of the comments. Do the other people in the team need help to finish? Maybe help with testing, maybe help with data. Or if the answer is no, then as I see some of the suggestions, are there maybe some technical debt to fix? Are there some bugs to fix that we can address? If not, the next step is to say, well, product owner, what can I start next? Well, the challenge is, what if the product owner is in a different time zone and maybe we're 7 hours, 6 hours, as we are today between the United States and with Ukraine? We're 6 hours because of daylight savings this weekend. Do we wait until the product owner wakes up and comes back to work? But if the product owner has stories into the next sprint, the team knows I just go to the top of the next sprint, take the story. So we're trying to make this engine, we're trying to make the team continually moving without stopping. So the more we can load up the next sprint, the team knows they can go and grab the next story and begin working. The other thing I tell the teams, if you can finish the story in the current sprint, bring the story into the sprint. If you cannot finish it in this sprint, leave it in the next sprint. It's okay. Start working on it. So when we do start the new sprint, they close the story almost immediately in perhaps 1 or 2 days. So good question from Natalia. What if the product owner refuses, and I'll go back to the other questions. What if the product owner refuses to prepare the plan for the next 2 to 3 sprints? Part of it is having the discussion. It's, I always say, is put the terms in the language of the product owner. So to the product owner, I would say, do you want us to move faster? Do you want us to finish the work sooner? How will that look to your management? You know, this is something that benefits you if we can finish sooner. The way that you can help us is if you can help preload that sprint. This will help us move even faster. So I'm trying to put it in the language of the product owner. Also, this could be a conversation we have during a retrospective. Come to the retrospective, let's talk about ways that we can improve. This is a great topic to discuss about, well, if the product owner, if you can help load these stories sooner, that will help us move quicker. So Marnia also asks, will you adjust the sprint goal then? It depends. In many cases, if we're only bringing in 1 or 2 stories ahead of time, there may not be a significant change to the sprint goal, because sometimes the goal might last 2 or 3 sprints. So if we're just bringing in 1 or 2 stories, it does not dramatically change the goal, or not in a way we have to worry about that. If all of a sudden we're bringing in 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 stories, maybe we're not selecting enough stories in the sprint planning. So we're getting feedback on what adjustments do we need to make before we move forward. The question, good. From Askana, what can be done during the transition after the MVP release if there's not enough functional scope and the product owner currently discussing new scope with business stakeholders? Number one, I try to keep that from happening. I will talk to the product owner. Be prepared, we're coming to the end. We want to have continual development. Even though we're going to do a release, the development team should still be coding and still working and still moving forward. The release should be a separate activity and effort on its own. So what I work with the product owner is, yes, there might be an MVP, but we need to be ahead. We need to be prepared. We need to be thinking those 2, 3 sprints ahead. If for whatever reason, we just don't have the material, then back to as some of the other comments, maybe there's some other bugs, there's other technical debt that we can fix, there's other activities to work on. Maybe that's a good time for team members to work on personal training or work on personal classes. Yep, I love the comment. Optimize the performance. Exactly. What should be prioritized in your opinion if the team has capacity? So I always say is the stories in the sprint should be first. So I agree with the user story development. In our teams, we bring the bugs into the sprint. So we'll decide that, okay, we may have 30, 40 bugs. This sprint, we're going to do these 5 bugs. So part of the bugs are in the story. But if we have all the stories, we fixed the bugs, then that's sometimes a conversation with the product owner. Would you like us to fix more bugs? Do you want us to focus on new functionality? What's the business interest? They might be saying, these bugs are okay, we accept them, and that's okay, that's a valid point. Perhaps the new functionality is more important, or fixing the bugs. Then typically third is technical debt. That is the order I would list it in as well. If there's still work that we can improve the technical debt, then we can come back and do that. Yep, Marek, I absolutely agree. It's focused on our product owner, focused on what's the priority that they're asking us for. If we're not having that conversation, we get into trouble. Here's another technique that I do. Sometimes we supplement our product owners with business analysts. Again, you will not see the word business analyst in any Scrum or Agile documentation, but there's still a need for that skill. If the product owner cannot keep up with the work, perhaps they are pulled into other activities, sometimes we'll have 2 or 3 or 4 business analysts helping with the stories. They work directly with the product owner. And what we do is we also have the business analyst help with testing. One side note, intermediate concept. If the business analyst writes this story, they should not test it. If they're going to write story A, they can test story B. This person writes story B, they can test story A. As part of just good quality management, the person writing the test script or writing the story should not really be the person testing it. Yes, from a product owner, I agree. But when we use business analysts, we want the person writing the story to test someone else's results. It helps add clarity and it adds quality to make sure we're writing a language that other people can understand. So that's how we balance that business analyst role. One other technique, this worked very good. Some of our teams were large. We had one team of 22 people. It is not ideal, but it worked. So instead, we said, let's have 2 product owners working together. One person was from the business, one person was from the IT, and they had the relationship. These 2 people worked very closely. If there were other meetings they could not attend, at least one person could attend the meeting so that the team still had someone to talk to. If there was something that needed clarity, then that product owner talks to their other product owner and they'll decide. But for the majority of the questions, either product owner could answer the question. It was great to have. So in some cases, both were attending the meetings. In other cases, they'd rotate working together. Yes, I can hear the fear. Has co-product owner approach backfired? I am glad to say no. I've had product owner problems, but not a co-product owner. The trick, the important part is to select 2 people that work very well together. And if they have the same mission and vision and purpose, then it can work very well. But picking the right people can be the challenge. Part of it is their management saying, your objective, your bonus at the end of the year is dependent on the 2 of you working together. One of your goals is we're going to analyze the ability of the 2 of you to work together. So that adds a little bit of pressure and involvement. Am I the one involved in selecting the PO? I try to help out when I can if I'm coaching. It's let's list out the people who can play the role. Let's match them up to the team and the skill set. In many cases, though, the product owner, the business person and the IT person are already working together. So in many cases, they already have a relationship, and it's also very good. So we try to tap into those two people already working together to say, let's be the co-product owner. We do not do that in every case, but in some, for the very large projects, sometimes that's an option that can help with the load. So what metric or process or evidence could be gathered for a product owner to show the planning is a must, and that why we need scope in advance? All right, Mary, that's a great question. Part of it is I show, trying to think if you can do this in a cumulative flow diagram. But typically what I'll show is wherever there's delay in starting the, I'm going to come back to your question too. I just saw the question that came in. But what I try to show from a metric is where there's delays. So if we have a delay going from one section to another, that's the metric I show back, Mary, is saying, look at this delay. We had to wait 2 days because we're waiting for the next piece of scope. I can save you 2 days, magic. I'll give you magic productivity if you just can work a little sooner. Look at that, I saved 2 days, and we can do it here, we can do it here, we can do it here. And when you start showing them, here's how you can go faster. Do you want to go faster? Do you want to deliver sooner? Well, yes, of course they do. Then this is how I can help you go faster. You have to make this change in the way you're working. So Alexander asked a great question, and I'm going to love the answer. The Scrum guide says it's prohibited to have 2 product owners. There should only be a single source of truth. This is where, remember what the title of this presentation, intermediate and advanced techniques. Yes, the book will tell you, follow the book. There's only one way to do it. But as part of being an Agile, we have to assess and use our own brains, use our own knowledge. That's why I say we don't do this all the time. But if we have a very large project or it's a high visibility and we need extra help, this is an approach. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making a very conscious decision. We've decided we're going to use 2 people for product owners. We made that very explicit decision. We didn't just pick it. We didn't make it random. We didn't do it because they couldn't decide who was going to be the product owner. We came back with a very specific reason why we chose to do it. As long as you have a very good reason, you understand what you're doing, you understand the challenges, absolutely you can do whatever that you want to do. Jordan, very similar, right? Multiple POs are possible if you're scaled. One should be a chief product owner. Typically, when we have those 2 people together, I mentioned one is from the business, one is from IT. If there's ever a disagreement, it typically goes to the business person. That's why in some cases we don't have the challenge. If the 2 can talk together, they understand each other, they can speak for each other. If they need to debate or discuss, it's typically the business person will say, here's why it's important. If that business person has a question or they have a disagreement, we have an overall product manager who goes across all the teams. They can come up to and say, we need a decision. And that person will say, here's my decision. It's going to be this, or it's going to be this. Can we have a PO from a business and a proxy PO? Sometimes I don't want to let the business product owner be less involved, because if they're less involved, we're really not getting the value from them. I want to make sure I have someone who's really giving at least 50% of a product owner. If that person can only give 10%, they're not really a product owner. I'm going to ask them, can you delegate someone from your team? Can we pick someone else to be the product owner? And that's all part of those conversations. It's forcing us to get the right person assigned. If we can't get the right person assigned, I'll raise my hand and say, maybe we don't do this project. maybe we don't have the right people. Maybe this project is getting ready to fail. Because one of the things I want the product owner to do is to own moving the stories to done at the end of the sprint. So let me expand a little bit here. One of the techniques that we did to speed up, we created a column called ready for review. So all of the work, the developers moved the stories, they tested it. When they're done, they put it in ready for review. Normally, we can wait until the end of the sprint to do the demonstration for everything. But our product owners, when they become very embedded, very connected to the team, they want to test the stories during the sprint and not wait until the end. So we add a column called ready for review. The product owner looks at this column every day. When something comes in, they go in and they'll look at the test results. They look at it, they'll test it themselves. They'll just learn how it works. If they're happy, they move it to done immediately. It could be on day 2 of the sprint. It's okay. Nobody says we have to wait until the end. We made a very conscious decision in this team because the product owner did not want to wait to the end and try to do 10 stories. Our product owner said, no, we wanted to be engaged sooner. We said, okay, here's a solution that can work. They liked it because by the time we got to the demo was only 30 minutes. And all we did as a team was review what was the work completed for the sprint. If we found a problem or a bug on day 2, then the product owner could move it back into the same development cycle instead of waiting until the end of the sprint and moving it into the next sprint. So we were actually getting bugs fixed within the same sprint cycle because our product owner was looking much sooner. That technique worked amazing for us. That worked very, very fast. Not all product owners have that a time to commit, but our product owners said, yes, this made more sense because they could give 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day. It allowed them to spread out the work throughout the sprint. Yeah, the pitfall of 2 product owners when one avoids the work and the second points. So again, it's important to have the management help push and say, this is your new responsibility, is to work together. What do you think of the following typical communication: team, BA, product owner? I'm okay with this structure as long as the product owner is part of the daily stand-ups, the demos, and the retrospectives, well, and the planning. During the sprint, maybe that makes sense, having the business analyst talk in terms of the product owner. But I still want the product owner to have accountability and to be part of what's actually happening. If they're not, then the business analyst is making the decisions, and that becomes dangerous. We want the team to be as close to that product owner as possible. Good question. This is great. I love it. It's getting me to think. Mary's question: what should we do when dividing a big team into several small teams? I've had small teams of 3, 4, 5 people. I've had large teams of 22, 23, 24 people. It typically comes down to how close does the work have to be? Does it make sense having it as a larger team because the communication will help? Or is there very few dependencies between the two, so it's easier to break them into 2 smaller teams? If the work can be isolated, then yeah, smaller teams make more sense. Our larger teams, we were doing work with SAP, with a database, with a search engine, and they had to talk very, very closely. Everything we did was all connected together. So we decided, the Scrum book says 5 to 9 people. We said, yep, 22 people, given this problem, given this, the situation, this made sense keeping that team larger because of the type of work that it was. Again, we made a very conscious decision to make this change. We didn't just randomly make the change. And this is the team that we went from 23 story points to 113. Very, very significant difference. So we saw the speed difference. We saw the benefit. So every change that we made, we did it as an experiment. Make the change, observe the response. Did it get better? Then that change was okay. If we had worse response, if things got less better, okay, can we adjust it? Can we adopt it? If not, then we simply said, let's stop it. Let's go back to what we did before. So we'll talk a little more about retrospectives. If there's a quiet retrospective, what does that typically mean? If I go into a retrospective and I'm just observing my first meeting and it's quiet, that's usually not a healthy team. To me, retrospectives should be good conversations and people talking and sharing and changing ideas. If I see a quiet retrospective, there's a team dynamic that's missing. So I need to work with the team, work with individuals, try to understand why the team is not talking to each other. I've also had teams that instead of waiting until the end of the 2 weeks for our retrospective, our teams were getting so good, if they came up with an idea, say on day 2 of the sprint, they had an idea. At the end of the stand-up, we would say, hey, we need 5 more minutes. I want to talk through an idea. The team would make a decision. Do we want to go ahead and try it mid-sprint or wait until the end of the sprint? If we all agreed like, oh, that's a good idea, we went and implemented it right there immediately. We did not wait until the retrospective to implement it. That's okay. We agreed as a team. We own it. The team owns the decision of how to change. If everyone was comfortable making the change, go ahead and make the change. It's okay. So Yulia, how to build a healthy team. Tell you what, let's expand that at the end if you don't mind. I'm gonna make that a note because that could be a good 10 to 20 minute conversation. And I just want to make sure I get through some of these other slides first. And I definitely have some time at the end. The other concept I want to share is retrospectives that can breathe. And what do I mean by breathe? So we are taught, we have sprints. Each of these bars is a sprint. And every retrospective, we're supposed to have 1 or 2 ideas, and that's what we implement the next sprint. That's what we're taught in the book. Okay, fair enough. Easy to teach. In reality, I find it breeze. Maybe the first 2 sprints, yeah, you might get 1 or 2 ideas. And then all of a sudden you start getting 0 ideas. This is where many teams decide, oh, we don't need the retrospective. We're perfect. We can stop. I've had teams who have been together for 3 years. They still come up with new ideas. But what happens is sometimes you won't get ideas. That's okay. But then keep doing it, because maybe 2, 3, 4 sprints later, all of a sudden the number of ideas will jump up. We'll get 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 ideas. And then maybe 2 or 3 sprints, we'll get ideas, and all of a sudden we'll get nothing again. And then we'll all of a sudden get a lot of ideas and get nothing. And I call that breathing. It's like waves in the ocean. You get lots of ideas and nothing, nothing. I teach my teams, one of the most important ceremony is the retrospective. It's the most misunderstood, the most difficult, and to me, the most benefit. This is where the core of the team fixes itself. When there's a problem on the team, this is the meeting to fix it, to talk about it, to address it, to try something new. Even if there's nothing to discuss, maybe it's team building time. Let's talk about family. Let's talk about travel. Let's talk about politics. Let's talk about food, anything. It gives the team a chance just to kind of catch their breath and just relax a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll go around, talk to the team before the retrospective and look for ideas. Well, what bothers you? What's happening? What's going on? I'll collect some ideas. So the next retrospective, I won't say names, but I'll share and say, hey, maybe can we come up with a way to shorten the comments? I don't know, something. And I'll share the idea and see if it sparks a conversation. Does it generate new conversations? So sometimes that's another way of starting, but I allow that breathing to occur and I just insist we're going to have these meetings. Soft skills work, yes. Do you think a retrospective could reduce the tension between team members naturally? Yes, this is where it happens. When there's tension and I find out about it, I'll bring it up. I won't say names, but I'll say, I'm noticing that seems like it takes a little bit of time to go from developer to testing. Can we talk about that? Well, I already know two people are upset or angry or frustrated. So I already know this is a very good topic to discuss, but I bring it up. If they're mad, they can get mad at me. Okay, be mad at me. I don't mind. But it forces them to talk about it. And then all of a sudden they realize this wasn't a big problem. They solve it and they go, oh, that wasn't so bad. It wasn't so scary. And then the next problem comes up and the next problem comes up. Eventually, I don't need to do that anymore. I move away and they start talking amongst themselves. That's when I know I have a good, healthy team. That's back to Yulia's question too. I know we're going to touch a little bit of these, Yulia, as we go along. To me, I always like having the product owner in the retrospective because they should receive feedback too. Are the stories good? Are the stories have enough detail? What would help the developers go faster? Can you have more stories ready in the next sprint? Can you add more acceptance criteria? The wording is a little confusing. Can you add more detail? Can you add maybe information about the account? This is where we give feedback to the product owner. If there's anything the product owner is frustrated about, here's the opportunity to discuss it. So to me, yes, I want the team there. I do not allow any managers there. It's only the team, the Scrum Master, the product owner. Everyone else is not allowed in meeting, and I have kicked out vice presidents and said, nope, this is not for you. Because I want the team to be comfortable talking to each other. And that's the dynamic I need to create. It takes time, but that's the important part. That's the essence. I love your comment there, Marek. Yep. When you name the tension, you help people release it. Exactly. And then people feel like, oh, we can actually solve this. This is good. This is healthy. Yep. Especially as, yep. And you agree, tension will escalate if we don't address it. If your product owner is also your project manager, yes, if a project manager has to learn, this is different. This is not project management. I have fought many project managers and explained to them, you cannot come in and tell everybody what to do. This is not project management. It has to be different. Scrum Masters, do not be part of the permanent solution. Your job as Scrum Masters is to observe and watch and see the people. Look at the people dynamics. Don't worry about the technical. The technical will solve itself. Focus on the people dynamics. Learn, read books. I think I have on my next slide, I have some book recommendations. But if you do need to help, like maybe this sprint, maybe testing is getting backed up a little bit, I'll help. Can I do the simple test? I won't do the complicated, difficult ones. I'll do the simple ones. You need some stories written or maybe refined. I can do the simple ones. Okay. I'm not the expert in the system, but let me do the simple ones. Let the expert do the more difficult ones. I can help out. Maybe someone is on vacation or someone is sick. Okay, could I step in for 2 or 3 days and help? Can I help with logic problems? I have a very good engineering background. So we had our product owner. She had one case, 17 solutions. This was for returning a product. We had to ask 17 branches and which of the 17 is the true case. She had no idea how to address that. And I said, okay, I can help. We got onto a board. I asked questions. I did not understand the problem, but I could understand asking questions, clarify. We broke it up. What questions should come first? What questions come second? How do we build our decision tree? And we spent maybe 5, 6 hours working on the decision tree. And then she goes, I know how to do this now. I helped her solve the logic problem, even though I was not the expert. That's the kind of things that I tell the Scrum Masters to do. Can we help with those type problems? Supporting the product owner. I had one product owner that she was learning how to make decisions. She was the expert. She knew exactly what to do. She was the closest to the problem, but she never was allowed to make decisions in her previous job before Agile. So she'd come to me and she says, I think we should do this. This is the right thing to do. And I go, excellent idea. You should do that. She'd come 2 days later. I think we should do this. Excellent idea. You should do that. I had no idea what she was talking about, but it didn't matter. She was the expert. She knew what the answer should be. I could check it for logic and does it make sense? But I was encouraging her to say, yes, make the decision because you're the best qualified person to decide. And after about a month of this, then she was very comfortable, very good to do that. She started making decisions. I went and worked somewhere else. These are those skills that, again, we don't read in a book somewhere, but to me, it's observing the team, observing the behavior, listening. You'll see these things and figure out how to help. Marek, remember when the team was told they were surprised when you're actually doing your best to understand their pain points. It does help. Help them to be more open and take more risk. Absolutely. This is about risk and being comfortable taking risk. Listen to your team to serve them. Here's another concept. Are you learning their business and understanding their terms and using their terms? You heard me say this already 3 times on this call. When you talk to the product owner, are you using language that they understand? Are you using what their interest is? If we're talking about returning product and shipping for a distribution company, am I learning the language? What words do they use? If I'm in a pharmaceutical company in research and development, am I learning the scientific terms? I'm working with procurement. Do I understand their language? Finance, do I know what depreciation is? Do I know what capital is? Do I understand expense? Procurement, legal, what is their job? Their job is to have a contract with no holes in it. But with Agile, we're saying we want to leave a few holes to allow the flexibility of Agile. So am I using their language when I'm talking to them about how to implement Agile? So as much as we can learn their language and their terminology, it'll resonate more, and they'll think and they'll feel they are understanding, and I understand their problems. I mentioned some books. There are definitely books on how to influence people, how to understand people. These are not these are not ways to trick or manipulate people, but it's understanding. It's how to influence people. How do people make decisions? How do people, yes, here we go. I love Marek's comment. It's like Covey. First, understand them before you're understood. And these are all the techniques that I've been learning as I read these books. I read lots of these books. I just took a class at Wharton. If you've heard of the Wharton School of Business in the US, it's one of the top business schools. It's just down the street from my house. And I was invited into a class ran by a neuroscientist who's trying to understand how can we apply that to thinking and making decisions in business? Like, yeah, that sounds like an interesting course. They asked me if I would participate to help them develop the class. I said, sure. I know nothing about neuroscience, but it was amazing how many things I saw that I could relate to Agile. Very, very interesting class. Understand the tools. Do you understand how Jira works? Version 1, whatever the tool might be. There's lots of tools out there, but I love Marek. Marek sent me a direct note. He read Robert Cialdini. He said, I don't know why I was reading it, but it was worth it. Absolutely worth it. You'll open your eyes about how people make decisions, good decisions and bad decisions. But learning the tools, understand how do they work? What can you do? What can you not do? We don't want to be super custom, but are there some simple things we can do in the tools? You don't have to be an administrator, but can you generate better reports for them? Can you generate better screens? Understand some of those basics. That's value that you can bring. Socratic method. Oh, I love this technique, especially as coaches. One of the techniques I tell coaches is don't give the team the answer all the time. I had one coach in India, in Bangalore. Every time there was a problem, somebody said, tell me what to do. And he would say, great, go do this. And I said, how are you going to scale yourself to support 50, 100 teams? If everyone is coming to you for the answer, how are you going to manage your day? You can't. You have to teach them how to think. Sometimes the way to do it is ask the question, what do you think? You know, I think we should do this. Yeah, tell me why. Why do you think you should do that? Or what should I do? Well, what do you think? Do you have some suggestions you can start with? And then I can maybe give them guidance and suggestions. I never give them an answer. I'll say, have you thought of this? Have you thought of trying this? That might be the best answer, but I don't want them to think I gave them the answer. I want to give them a suggestion. I want them to make the decision and learn how to make a decision. Again, this is back to Yulia's question. You know, what's factors that lead to a healthy team? It's teaching people you're allowed to make decisions. Oh, there we go. Give a person a fish and you'll feed them today. Teach them to fish. They'll feed for a lifetime. Absolutely. So as coaches, don't always give them the answers. Help them find the answer. Help them research it. Give them suggestions. Give them two options and let them decide. They'll own it more. They'll feel more able to do that. Similar with product owners, it's helping product owners make decisions. As I told you my story already. It's teaching Scrum Masters how to be a coach. Because again, sometimes Scrum Masters focus just on the team, where a coach is more focusing on the leadership and systems and other parts. Well, let's get our Scrum Masters to be a senior Scrum Master. Let's get our Scrum Masters to potentially do small coaching. I joke about it by saying, I like to be very lazy. I want to delegate as much as I can. I want people to feel comfortable making those decisions, come to me to help with the harder problems. That's how I scale across 30,000 people around the world in my corporation. I can't be at every meetings, but can I build up my people so they can attend meetings? And I go to the ones that are more strategic, moving us to a different place. Last kind of section here is I want to talk about your communication. Can you explain why is Agile faster? These are some really simple ideas, but let me just share a couple ways that I communicate. Why does Agile work? Because I can sit there and say, oh, it's faster, it's better, it's cheaper, whatever. We can spend a lot of time talking and a lot of time talking and talking and talking. And I go, you're wasting my time. Let's just get started. So I come up with a few ways of visual learning is very important. So I have these slides I love to share in many, many places. I say waterfall, here we go. We have an idea, we get to the desired. But if I have a small difference in the beginning, by the time we get to the end, we can have a very large disconnect between what our customer wanted versus what we've built. And if we don't check throughout, we get a big gap. Agile comes along and says every 2 weeks, every sprint, we're going to constantly make adjustments. Now, we still may not give you what you want at the end, but we're going to be a lot closer because we're constantly making adjustments. So that's why we get better. We're constantly checking. What if our customer changes their mind? Well, sometimes that happens. And if we don't check, we're going to get even further behind. Well, with Agile, because we're constantly checking in, we're going to pick up those changes. Again, we're going to be closer to the desired outcome. 2 slides, boom. How fast did that take me? A minute and a half, 2 minutes? That's the crux. That's the core of what Agile is about in terms of flexibility and adaptive as Oksana said. It's responsive to changes, Marnia said. But I've explained it. I didn't spend 3 months. I didn't spend hours and hours of describing it. I did it in 2 slides. They're the kinds of communication we need to have with our customers. Here's another one I love to share. How about if I give you 40 to 75% productivity with 0 effort? Are you interested? I'll give you 40 to 75% productivity with almost no effort. It's hard to say no to that to a manager. So one company I worked in, they wanted to have small projects because that'll make us faster. Okay. Except we took 3 months to start the project, 3 months to run the project, 1 month to stop. Then we spend 3 months for the next piece of work and a month to stop. What if I can cut out the middle part and say, let's keep the team together? So instead of spinning up new project teams each time, how about we keep the team together and just change the work that they're doing? Let's do the simple calculation. The top 2 projects take 14 months. The bottom one takes 10 months. The bottom one only takes 71% of the top time. Or to put it another way, it's 40% faster. No additional hours, no evenings, no weekends. That's a 40% speed increase by simply keeping the team together and cutting out all the transition time. Let's scale it up to 4 projects, same thing. 28 months versus 16 months. What are the numbers? 57% of the original, or flip it, 75% faster with doing almost nothing. All we did was kept the team together. All of a sudden, you start getting people's attention. The other thing is, we're going to come back to it in a couple slides. We're going to talk about the other value of keeping it together. Here's another way that I share things. People ask me all the time, can't you just give me the book? What's your playbook? Tell me how to go do it. I'll go do Agile all by myself. And I go, no, don't do that. So I give them my university analogy, college, university. I say, here, how many of us are on the phone? I think we're up to 90 or 100 people, 127. That's great. So 127 of us, we can say, yeah, we've been to college. We've been to university. We know what that means. It's a shared experience. We have a concept of what this means, except we've been to a large school, small school, public school, private school, in the city, in the country, different countries, different languages, different degrees, different activities. We've all taken a different journey through our college experience, but yet we still call it a collective university experience. My daughter, my youngest daughter, just started university, and she said, Dad, tell me what to do every single day for the next 4 years so I can pass college, I can pass university. Well, I don't know about you, I can't write that 1,000-page document. I can't tell her what to do every day. Her journey is going to be different than mine. But Agile has values and principles the same way college has values and principles. What are they? Go to class, talk to your professor, study, do the homework, take the tests, pay your bills, don't stay out too late, don't drink too much, stay away from drugs, get involved in activities. For the most part, you'll probably do okay. Yes, you can still get through university without following all those principles. It just makes it harder. The more you follow the principles, the easier it becomes. Agile works the same way. And me as a coach, my job is to not be sitting next to her for 4 years, still telling her the answers. Remember, I mentioned the Socratic method. I'm teaching her how to think. I'm teaching her how to solve her own problems. She just had a problem with her roommate. Her and her roommate are now going to separate because her roommate was running out to parties and running all over the place. She's not studying. Her room is a mess. So my daughter had to solve it herself. I gave her suggestions. I gave her ideas. I helped her think about the problem, but she solved it. Yes, it was difficult, but she's going to be more mature. She's going to grow because now she's solving some very difficult problems at her age. So here's a very simple way to explain Agile, to say, here's why I cannot give you a 1,000-page document that tells you how to do Agile. That's the worst thing I can do, is give you that book. You won't be successful. Let me work with you. Let me help you. I'll help guide you through this process. And hopefully you're getting the sense, like it's getting you to think a little different about what is Agile and how it works. So we talked a little bit about why is Agile faster? They were some of the techniques. Having something as simple as a coaching agreement. So when our coaches come in and we say, we're going to help you, do we agree on what we're solving? We're going to help you as a team do what? Faster, better, cheaper, quicker, communicate better, talk. I don't know, why are we here? How are we going to pay for it? And what kind of schedule are we talking about? You know, something as simple as that. Sometimes we need an engagement to describe what work we're going to be doing. The other phrase I love to share with them is to say, are you ready for Agile? Again, it always sounds backwards when I say these things, right? Because I tell them the productivity is going to go down when you implement Agile before you get the increase in productivity. Why do I say that? Because it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. We're changing people's behaviors. We're forcing them to think differently. Yes, it's going to be hard. I acknowledge it. I say it's going to be hard. And I'm checking to see, are they truly interested? If they want a quick fix, Agile's not your solution, because they're going to do it for 2, 3, 4 weeks. They'll get frustrated. The problem won't be them. The problem will be Agile. Oh, Agile doesn't work. Now I'm fighting them. So I want to work with teams that are ready to make this change. So here's a way that I show it. You may have heard of the Tuckman model. You may not know the name of it, but you may have heard the words forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. When teams start, they form, they have a certain level of effectiveness, but then they start kind of figuring out how to work together. They go through a storming phase. As they go through storming, then they finally start figuring out, here's how we work. And if we can help them go further, this is back to Yolanda's question again, getting a healthy team, working with them, talking to them, working in the retrospective, getting them to interact with each other. That's how we get a team up to performing. Now, if you remember, I showed you the thing about moving the projects together, keep the team together longer. Let's add that in here. Every time we stop a project team and start up a new team, we have to go through this curve. We have to go through this storming phase. If we bring those two teams together, we stay at the performing phase. We don't have to go back to the forming, storming, norming phase. If we can keep the teams together longer and simply change the work that they're doing, we stay in the performing phase. We get even more productivity with no cost. Crazy. It's sitting there waiting for us to tap into it. I'll let that sink in for a moment. So if we keep teams together, keep them focused, we get free productivity. Now I'm going to share it with one other aspect. There's 2 studies that were done. One that was done by the Standish Group maybe 15 years ago. 45% of software is never, ever used. 45% of software is never, ever used. But what do we do in waterfall? We come out, we have to wait until we fully define the entire software product before we start. That's the 3 months over here. We have to wait until we define 45% of something we're never going to use. But because people think this is our one and only chance to get a feature in, we have to get it in there, even if we don't think we're going to need it. And then we're going to build and test 45% of something we're never going to use. Agile comes along and says, we're going to focus on the most important thing first. The other study was 80% of software is rarely or never used. 80%. They're huge numbers. But Agile is saying if we focus on the most important things first, get it in front of our customers, get it out there, we're going to learn, we're going to experience more, we're going to feed that into the next steps. And if we start with the most important pieces first, if for whatever reason we must stop, we've gotten the most important things. And we're going to get them released faster. So you get productivity gain by not trying to waste time defining something you're never going to get to. Another huge performance value and benefit. So it's understanding, it's thinking these concepts. That's why I say this is intermediate and advanced concepts, to be thinking about how do we communicate this with leadership to go, Agile's a joke. It's all fake. It doesn't really work. Oh, really? Here's where it works. Here's how it works. Here's what it means to you. It's putting it in terms that they understand. Coming up on the last 2 or 3 slides here. I mentioned this earlier, it's learning our business, learning the concepts, learning the terminology for Scrum Master, as well as a coach. We all have to learn that. Learn the area that you're working in. I've learned a lot about different areas. I love it. I did some free consulting. I'm not a consultant, but I did free consulting for a brand called Loro Piano. It's one of the Louis Vuitton brands. If you're familiar with Louis Vuitton, they have something like 250 companies underneath there. And this is one of the companies. It was a friend of a friend. They sell socks at something like 500 euros for a pair of socks. I'm sorry, that's way out of my price range. A scarf is something like 2,000 euro. Sorry, I can't spend money like that. That's beyond me. But it was fascinating as I was sharing some ideas and thoughts with them about what is Agile, how could it help their business. I was learning about their business. Tell me about retail. How do you make money in this business? Who buys this stuff? How does the manufacturing work? So to me, I was learning about an industry I knew nothing about. And all I had to do was have 3 phone calls, 2 with the one director and the 3rd one with the CEO of that brand. I was fascinated. So to me, it was worth my time because of all I learned about an industry and a business I didn't know anything about. So that's me, though. I like to learn a lot. So as I wrap up here, what I want to ask, I know I've gotten some great questions, great comments. Any other examples that you like to share yourself with the group? Is there any particular problems that you struggle with? So while we're doing that, before we get to that, I just want to say, Jacoya, thank you very much. I appreciate you listening and attending. Happy to connect through LinkedIn. Always happy to talk. I do presentations many times, and when travel is done, being restricted, I'm definitely going to be back in, let's see if I get it right, Lviv and Kyiv. I definitely want to come out and meet in person. Hopefully we'll get a chance to meet in person as well. But with that, I do want to open it up and questions, comments, discussions, whatever you like to do. I think we still have, I'll let you people tell me how much time we have, but I think we have like another 15, 30 minutes or so.
We have.
Okay.
Even more, half an hour.
Excellent. I'm here for the rest of the hour. So question, is it possible to become a Scrum Master without a coding background? Yes. May I face this case negative for my team in some way? I say yes, because if you focus more on the people and the dynamics, that's the strength of the Scrum Master. If the Scrum Master is too focused on the technology, they're not being a very good Scrum Master. Now, the team is going to want you to be able to speak their language. So you still might want to learn some of the basics. Maybe take a programming class just to understand the concepts. And of course, it's finding the first engagement that will allow you to do that. But helping the team flow, I don't think you have to be a technical person to do that. What was the most challenging experience with big teams? It's I think it's whether it's big team or small team, it's trying to get to show the successes first. Start with something small, start with something quick, show the success, get them hooked. Because if they see the one benefit, now they want more. Then they're going to come back for more. So even with larger teams, it's getting a lot of people to try something new quickly. The other challenge with large teams is figuring out the communication structure. You need a little more hierarchy to handle 200 people. So defining that, I personally think the best Scrum Masters have a project management education. They understand how to build those structures. They understand communication plans, stakeholder management. That's all basics for project management, but it's not taught with Scrum training. So having that background helps you scale those larger projects better. What would be another value principle of Agile for you that is hardly mentioned in the guides? I hit a bunch of them today, but it still, to me, it comes down to it's the people side. This is where most companies, most people, even the people that started Agile, when I talked to Jeff Sutherland, I talked to other folks, they don't understand the people component. They're missing that piece. And that's where I think the strength is. It's understanding how this can help out. How do you, I love the phrase, how do you approach teams that are comfortably numb from Pink Floyd? How do you coach them to want it? I think part of that is, what do they care about? That's what you've got to find out. And again, this is back to people. Do they care about the product? Do they care about the company? Do they care about their job? Do they care about money? Is that all it is? Do they care about their next promotion? And it's having informal conversations with people first. Find out what makes them tick. Find out what makes them interested. Listen to what they talk about. I'm sitting here looking at people in their photos. Now, when people have their normal backgrounds, what's in their background? Is there something with military? Is it something with boating? Is it sports? Look for the connection. Look for a way to connect with someone. Find out what they're interested in. And then how do I change talking about this project to help them get what they want? You want to be promoted? Here's a great way to produce more and be seen and recognized as a leader. If you just want to come in and do your job and go home, you'll have less overtime with Agile. Do you want to, in my case, I'm helping my entire company change their culture. We don't get to do that very often in our careers. But if I help a pharmaceutical work faster and quicker, we work with cancer drugs. I'm helping people save lives by getting drugs to our patients faster. That's huge. That's super exciting. That's what gets me awake in the morning to come to work. I'm helping to roll out drugs faster in a company that's saving people's lives. It's understanding what that interest is. Let's see. I'm going to make sure too many things didn't scroll off. Let me just go back a little bit. All our teams should be sold to our customers. If that's a question, let me know. How do you make a productive daily with 15 people? Ah, I'm glad you brought this one up. Well, how do I pronounce that? Nedelcho? Nedelcho.
Yep.
Nedelcho. Hey, there we go. So yeah, Nedelcho. So I had 22 people on a team located in 7 sites, 5 time zones. Our daily stand-ups were 12 to 13 minutes. That's it. If you're spending more than 15 minutes, you're doing something wrong. When what I mean by wrong is, it's you come in, I'm working on A, I'm done by tomorrow. Any blockers? Nope. Next person. I'm working on B, I'm going to get it done today. No blockers. I'm working on C. I'm a little stuck. Can somebody help me with inline screening of XYZ filtering something? Yep, you can help me. Great. After this meeting, let's connect. Next person. Yes, I'm working on the stories for XYZ. Any blockers? Nope, done. That's how fast we go through it. For international meetings, we schedule 30 minutes. So what we do is the first 15 minutes is the daily stand-up. The second 15 minutes is we leave the conference number open. Anyone who wants to solve a quick problem stays on. Everyone else, they can drop, they can leave. So if 3, 4, 5 people want to solve a problem quickly, they can use the other 15 minutes with the same number. They don't have to waste time dialing a number, setting up a meeting. That was one of our efficiencies. If we don't need it, we hang up. If we need it, they can stay on. If they need more time, then they'll schedule something else. I use it as a Scrum Master to say, if Anna, I'll pick on Anna. If Anna on Monday says, I'll have it done on Tuesday, I come to Tuesday, she says, I'll have it done Wednesday. I come Wednesday, she says, I'll have it done Thursday. Anna, I think you need some help. Who can help Anna with this? Because I think there's some challenges here. I'm listening for things that are not progressing and they're getting delayed. That's what I'm listening as a Scrum Master. But they should be very, very fast. Encourage team productivity. Oksana, once you start getting a team to start working better, they're going to find ways to improve it themselves. Because I ask them, what do you not like? What is frustrating? What can we do to solve it? How do we stop doing that if it doesn't help? And all of a sudden, you get 1 or 2 wins and they go, oh, well, I've got something else. Great. What is it? Can we fix that? Can we solve it? Team, how can we solve this? All of a sudden, they start realizing all of their problems are getting solved. They're much more interested. So the trick is getting that 1 or 2 early on, and they see the results. They're going to be more engaged, more encouraged to be more productive. Working with big teams, it's a lot of the same techniques with smaller teams. It's putting the right structure in place, working with individual teams, and then having the structure of how those teams connect, whether a scrum of Scrum, whether it's all the product owners. We did a meeting, all the product owners came together with the Scrum Masters, and we had that as our Scrum of Scrum. Great conversation to move things across the teams. Some common mistakes. Ooh. Some of the most common mistakes are people think they've learned very little about Agile and they think they're experts. So the mistake there is not helping teams long enough. They'll get the initial and it starts working, but there's so many layers of improvement that until the team can generate the improvements themselves automatically, we don't leave. We're going to stay until we see that, to where they just start doing things themselves and they're doing it in a healthy way. They're thinking it through. Then that's when we start saying it's time for the coaches to roll off. So it's really, really important to help them long enough that they don't just simply push you away too soon. Yep, Marek, find the real motivation. Yeah, when you do something with joy, it's much more than you expect. I will tell you now, and I've seen this for 30 years, a motivated team will always outproduce a non-motivated team, no matter what, no matter where. A motivated team is always going to be running better. If you focus on the motivation, focus on helping them work, help solve their problems, reduce the frustrations, reduce the pain, reduce the busy work, they're going to get excited because now work becomes fun. I love it when my vice presidents use the word fun. That's one of my little internal metrics. If I get a vice president who says, this is fun, I'm enjoying doing this, now I've got them. They're going to keep coming back because they want more. This is fun. This is addictive. That's what I'm trying to create. I create the same environment with my contractors. They all think I'm backwards and crazy. I tell my contractors, I'm going to make it so difficult for you to leave. You're going to love it here so much. I'm going to give you so much freedom, decision-making ability. You're going to grow your career so much working for me. It's going to be painful for when you have to leave, because you're going to have to go back to normal, boring consulting. And I've had, over my years, I've kept in touch with many of the consultants I worked with, and they come back and they say, you know, I really miss working with you. But that's my goal as an employer, as a company. I get it. If I can make my contractors super excited to be here, it's going to be so much more fun. My job is to find out what someone's strength is and allow them to do more of what they're good at. That's my job. And whether I do it with an employee or a contractor makes no difference to me. I don't care. I don't care of somebody's background, gender, race, color, creed. I don't care about any of that. Can you work? Do you want to work? Are you interested in working? How can I help? That's it. Very, very simple for me. And I have fun doing it and have fun with the teams. When you become a Scrum Master, I started to have more anxiety about team projects, but feel less productive on complex technical problems. Yeah, as a Scrum Master, you should not be solving complex technical problems. So very, very, if you want to send me a LinkedIn, we can talk more, Alexander, anyone else, happy to talk a little more after the fact. But as a Scrum Master, yeah, you should not be solving their technical problems. You're helping them solve their own problems. If you talk to person A and they said, yeah, I'm waiting for person B. Okay, I go to person B. Oh, I'm waiting for person A. Oh, wait a minute. Do they know you're waiting for each other? I'll go get the two of them together. My job is done. I'm listening and understanding the team. Thanks, Marek. Thanks for coming today. I get the teams to talk to each other, to interact with each other. That's the value as me as a Scrum Master. It's not solving their technical problem. That's what their job is. That's what their expertise is. Latin, the most underrated, neglected thing in Agile. I teach this in my company. It is absolutely the retrospective. It is the most misunderstood because we never do this. How many times do you sit down and say, how can we as a team get better? What can we do as a team to work better together? I've never done that in my career. The only time I've ever done that is in a retrospective. That's the power of the retrospective. We don't do it anywhere else. So it's a hard skill to learn. We always want to talk about the work, the stories, the problems, the this, the that. It has nothing to do with the work itself. We as a team, how can we work better? If you're waiting for me, how do I signal to you that I'm ready? Maybe I add a comment to the story. So when I'm done, I can put an at your name into the story. You get an email saying, oh, it's done. Oh, you can respond faster. How do we work together better? That's what the retrospective is about. It's so misunderstood. If we could do that even outside of Agile, I think companies, corporations would dramatically improve the way they work. Too many people are hired to simply follow the directions, and they're told to shut up and do the directions. Unfortunately, that's what we're trying to change with Agile, saying, no, we want your ideas. We want your opinions. Let's talk about it. Let's experiment. Let's try something new. Do you somehow impose some Agile scaffolding in order to jumpstart the process or change? Not necessarily. I mean, I would say the only scaffolding is really either a standard Scrum, sprint planning. You do the sprints, daily stand-up, retrospective, demos, and yeah, doing that, that's kind of the scaffold. Or depending on the team, we might just do a pure Kanban board with no Scrum. But like I said, our first step is come in and understand the team dynamics first. Don't come in with the framework, because what if I'm wrong? What if there's tension on the team? There's problems. There's role confusion. That framework is not going to help. Let's understand the dynamics, fix some of the major problems first. Now they see you're actually helping immediately. Now they're willing to talk to you about a framework. So we don't, I always say our job is not to implement Agile. Our job is to help the team. We just eventually use Agile techniques. In my opinion, can co-facilitation be used as a tool to make your team more mature? To me, what the Scrum Master does and what the coach does is facilitation. That's what kind of what the job is. So Marna, if you're talking about something specific about co-facilitation, if you mean two people facilitating, oh, absolutely, it can be done. As long as those two people have a similar approach and they're saying the same thing, then if you're talking about more than one person, yes, it can be done. But if you want to clarify that, let me know. How do you lower members' distraction for the meetings during the day without discouraging in-team communications. I gotta think I understand, make sure I understand this one. And Alexandra, if you could help me on this one. How do I lower the members' distractions for the meeting? Do you mean making sure that they attend the meetings, Alexandra? Or do you mean in the meetings themselves to make sure they're not, they're getting distracted? So if you don't mind clarifying that one, I'll be happy to answer it. Yeah, a minor saying is, yeah, that co-person is a timekeeper or note taker. Absolutely. I like to have two, if possible. If I'm doing facilitation where there's there's a bigger problem on the team, I want to bring a second person in who's going to kind of listen differently and take notes and maybe do some of the time. I can get involved and dig deep and go in the conversation, and they're just being pure ears and saying, I'm listening to the dynamics. I'm watching the body language. How are people responding? So yeah, it does help sometimes. Who is driving team development and growth on the teams? Was the Scrum Master participating in it? If you're talking about the development of the developers themselves, typically they're working with their management. They'll talk to their management about opportunities to learn. Maybe it's Java, learning C++, learning SOAP calls, learning Angular, whatever it might be. They're talking with their boss to find out what are opportunities to grow. From the team itself, we're looking for opportunities that are the teams talking to each other, are they interacting, are they solving problems or helping each other? That's the dynamic from a Scrum Master I want to make sure they're focused on. I don't want to get to the position where a Scrum Master is trying to assess or determine the skill set of a developer. Now, there are times I've looked and said, these two people are always sitting together. Is there a problem? And I gently asked some questions and found out the one developer did not have the skills for what we needed. And the second developer was telling the first developer how to do it. So instead of me trying to solve that, I went to the resource manager and I said, I think there's a problem. Here's what I found. Can you go and find out further? I wanted his management, their management, to do the actual research. Resource manager came in and they realized after about 2 weeks that, yeah, this person really didn't have the skill sets. So we swapped him for a different team. They needed his skill set. That person, that team had the skill set I needed. So we made a team swap. But I didn't try to make the technical determination. I wanted the resource manager to come verify what I thought was happening. And then Alexandra's clarifying, there's a lot of random meetings during the day, distracts from the task. If the meetings, well, you have the set meetings of Scrum, so they should not really be that many. There's the daily stand-up, that's 15 minutes. And then the other ceremonies typically happen on a day. So you might have 3, 4, 5 hours, but the other days are open for the developers. If the meetings are from the team, that should be a conversation in the retrospective. So in the retrospective, are we having too many meetings? Are they too ad hoc? Can we plan them differently? Can we schedule them differently? So it's having the conversation within the retrospective to solve exactly that problem. Remember, the retrospective is, how do we work as a team? Perfect question to say, I think there's too many meetings. It's too distracting. How do we do it? Perfect example, like you said, Alexandra, is maybe you have some do not disturb time. I've done that and said, okay, you know what, afternoons, we're not going to do meetings or something. So it's whatever the team is comfortable doing is acceptable. These are those intermediate and advanced ideas. You're not going to find a one solution only in a book, but talking at the retrospective, that's where you're going to solve this problem. And try it as an experiment. So let me share this too. I wasn't going to say this, but think of it from a manager's perspective, okay? So you're a manager, an employee comes to you and says, I've got this idea. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I want to completely change everything that we do, and we're going to work in a different way. Are you as a manager going to take that risk? Or what if the same person comes to you and says, I've got an idea. I don't know if it's going to work. I want to try it on one team for just 2 weeks. Will you support me? Okay, I'll give that a try. That's easier to accept. And then after the 2 weeks, we'll look at it and see if did it make sense. All right, well, I'm going to try it again, or I want to try something else. Okay, try it. So from a manager perspective, it's easier to just try small, short experiments. It's also easier for the team to try that. And Mika, I apologize. I just saw your hand raised, so we'll come to you in a second. By allowing these small experiments, it allows the team to learn how to try something new without taking too big of a risk. And I think that's part of the benefit and by doing it that way. So when you're saying about having do not disturb time or too many meetings, try an experiment. Let's try this. Does it work or not? Then the next retrospective, did it work? Did it not? How do we adjust it? How do we make it better? What did we learn by those 2-week experiments? So let me come to, hopefully, Mika, you had your hand up. Did you want to?
Yep, here it's Richard.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I've got a quick one on retro, and I would love to hear your comments here. Do you, as a Scrum Master, actively participate in retro? What I'm trying to say is, are you more of a facilitator, trying to observe the team from the perspective, or
Sure.
do you also share your feedback and try to guide the team, to actually help them open up? Because there are different teams. Yeah, there are different retros, and we are aware about that. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Thanks.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to jump back here to, let's see if I can find it quickly. Oh, yep. Of course, I'm trying to find a slide and I can't find it quickly. It's back to what I talked about. Oh, here we go. It's very similar to the facilitation and Socratic method. So in a retrospective, that's what I'll ask. Well, what do you think? What are you seeing? What ideas do you have? Could you try this? If they won't bring it up, I'll find out. Maybe I'll bring it up. If they're talking, I don't try to solve their problem, but maybe I can offer a suggestion. Well, I'm hearing what you're saying. I can hear the frustration. What about this? Could this work for you? Because I don't want to tell them the answer, but if I give them a suggestion, they might want to modify it a little bit, and it makes them think like it's their idea. If it's their idea, they're going to want to do it more. It's not me telling them you have to do it because I'm a Scrum Master. That's not going to work. I want them to agree amongst themselves. Here's what we're going to do as a team. So yeah, I agree. I try not to solve the problems, but if I can offer some advice or suggestions, then they're the kinds of things that I'll do in a retrospective. Otherwise, I'm maybe capturing some notes. The way I do my retros, I have 3 questions. What worked well? What can we do more of? What can we do less of? With those questions, I'll say them again, with those questions, it's easy to put things in multiple categories, and it's not what's good, what's bad, what worked, because this new idea might have worked, but we want to do more of it. That's okay. It could fall in both categories. Or I like what we're doing, but we want to do less of it. That's okay too. I'm also starting with a positive. What's working? What's going well? I want people to recognize the success of what's happening too. So get them to think about successes. Then what can we do more of? What can we do less of? Or what should we stop doing? That could also form. What do we start doing or do more of? What do we stop doing or do less of? Or like I said, what's working? There are the 3 questions I like to ask. I'll take notes as I'm listening.
Okay. Got it. Just to follow up, so do you also actively participate in saying, for example, what you observed and what worked well from your point of view as a Scrum Master? Because I'm trying to figure out, I've got quite a fresh team, and I've seen some efficiencies or seems like some ideas that I can actually try with my team, but I'm hesitating to do so, not to actually. I'm trying to let them, as you said, breathe and figure out on their own. Yeah. My question is if you actively also participate in what was working from your point of view, what you want to see more from the team.
Yeah. Think of it as planting a seed. You want to grow a plant. So suppose you see that they're not efficient with, I don't know, updating code. And you see it and you understand it. Maybe you say is, you know, what do you think? Is there any suggestions? And you hear nothing. Well, let me ask a question. How good are we with updating the code? Is that working well for you? And I want to see, because maybe somebody will say, well, yeah, you know, we probably could do better that. Oh, what ideas do you have? So I'm leading the conversation. I'm not coming out and simply saying, team, you're doing a bad job with this. You could be more effective. Do it this way. I don't want to say that. So I want to just keep dropping hints. Well, code efficiency, do you think we could get better? What if they come back and say, nah, we're fine? Can I offer the team a suggestion? I'm asking permission. Would you mind if I offered a suggestion for a way to improve the code submission? Oh, yeah, okay. What's your suggestion? Well, if we did it this way, do you think this could help? Could it help it go faster? Could this help you do it better? See how I keep asking the question? I'm not telling them the answer. I'm asking because I'm trying to get them engaged and hooked and part of the conversation. So try those kind of techniques. And that's how you kind of, I call it leading the witness or leading the conversation. You have an idea in your mind, but I'm trying to get them to speak up, and then I'm getting them comfortable to thinking about it themselves. They're not waiting for me to give them the answer.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep, sure. All right, let me just jump back to where we were. A lot of random meetings. Yep, we talked about that. Responsibilities. Oh, okay. Here's one. Oksana also said, if there's a lot of multitasking during a big meeting of 25 people, here we go. Here's another couple techniques. Number one, are the people at the meeting, do they have to be there? I have kicked out people from meeting from working sessions. And I tell them, if you're a manager and you want a status update, don't come to a working session. That's not for you. We'll tell you afterwards what the result is. The other technique I use is I will say laptop closed. Now, it's a little harder with remote. I understand that. But in person, I would say this is a laptop closed meeting, except for the people taking notes or looking up data. So when managers come in and they go, well, I've got other stuff to do, then maybe you should go to another room because your typing is going to distract our workshop. Now, I say it in a much politer way, but I do it to get them to think and say, well, you're actually distracting us from working. How about we will tell you the results of our meeting later on. And then I've had managers go to their managers and complain. And then I talk to their managers and they go, yeah, you're right. They should be doing something else anyway. And then they support me and that's okay. Or they want to disagree. Great. I'm going to have the conversation and I'm going to ask the manager's manager, why must that person be in the room? What value are they adding? Are they contributing? They're telling me no, then why should they be in the meeting? It's very hard for managers to answer those questions. And I'm like, they shouldn't be there. The other thing is for the daily stand-up, same thing. I would tell people, no, it's 15 minutes. Do you really need your laptop? If you have to work on something during this 15 minutes, it's okay. Go excuse yourself because you may have something that's critical. I understand that maybe don't come to the stand-up. And then they miss out. And then they want to come back because they're missing the fun. So the other technique I do is every meeting, after maybe every 3-4 weeks, every 3 or 4 meetings, I'll ask one of the agenda items. I will ask, do we still need the meeting? What can we do to make the meeting better? What can we do to make the meeting shorter? Do we need to change the frequency? Instead of every week, can it be every 2 weeks? So every 3 or 4 meetings, I bring that up as an agenda item. How can we improve this meeting? Do we have the right people on this meeting? Do we need to add people? Do we need to remove people? It's amazing how much more efficient those meetings get by asking those very simple questions. That helps a lot of times with the big distraction. And again, same thing where you bring it up in a retrospective. I've noticed in our large meetings, people seem to be distracted. Does anyone else see the same problem? Can anyone else share? Are these meetings effective? Is there a way that we can improve these meetings? Great session. Yep, good comment here. It's nice practice for the developers to share their feeling at the start. Absolutely. That's why I say what's working. Tell me what's working. Motivates people, gives them instant feedback. Yep. And then people give compliments to each other. Good. Alexandra, good. I'm glad. You got to let me know, Alexandra. You got to send me a note. Tell me how it worked. I'm curious. Let's see. Well, that's interesting. Oh, the lactation consulting core. That's interesting. Love to hear more about that one, Inga. Alex, I suddenly got the feeling that Scrum Master role is to solve the deficit of the integrator behavior of the team, mostly producers. I'm not familiar with that model, so I apologize. I'll have to look that model up. So let me think about this a second. I think so. I want to be careful because I don't know the model. But yeah, really that Scrum Master is much more the facilitator. It's getting people to work, and it's getting the noise, the frustration, getting that stuff out of the way and allowing the producers to produce more. That's our goal. I read a great book. They said, we don't need more time. We need more uninterrupted time. When we become interrupted, that's where we lose a lot of our efficiency. So the more that we can lose all the distractions, we can become more productive because we're more focused and we can work on that. So I think that's what you're saying, Alex. In that case, I would agree. So how do I balance a strong Scrum routine and flexible facilitation? And then I'm going to answer along with the same question about establishing rapport with a virtual team. And in some ways, I think they're a little bit related. What I try to do is change the meeting a little bit. So like each stand-up, I come in, I may have the absolute worst day. I feel sick. I feel horrible. But my job is to be the cheerleader of the team. So I'm going to come in with energy. Anna, how you doing? All right, Cam, how's it going? All right. Yeah, all right, Razak, I'm looking for some great feedback today. All right, Alex, how you doing today? All right, you know what? Today we're going to start with Alex. Alex, why don't you lead us off today? It's hard not to bring energy when someone is so energetic. If they laugh at me, okay, I don't mind. I'll be the comedian. I'll be the MC, but it becomes infectious. If I keep doing it, then they get excited because they want to see what I'm going to do next. The next day, Anna, why don't you lead us off today? Tell us about this. The third day, Demetrio, why don't you go next? I see you. Yep, you've got some great ideas. Let's start with you today. Now they don't know who's going first, so they have to pay attention. If I keep doing the same order, and I'm going to pick on Dimitri here, if you're last and you always know you're last, you may not listen. But if you might get called first or second or fifth and you don't know, you're going to pay attention more. So that's part of that balancing the routine with the flexibility. So I'm going to change it up, change my style, get interactive to tie it in with the virtual teams. Sometimes on our daily stand-up, I mentioned we have the extra 15 minutes. If we don't have anything for that topic, sometimes I ask people to share photos. One of two areas. One is either their location or the other area is a vacation. Someone goes on vacation. We had one lady who went to China and she said, this trip, I always go to family. This trip, I want to see panda bears. I'm going to see the big black and white bears. That's what I'm going to see. Great. She came back and I said, okay, the first day that Minghua is back, our extra 15 minutes, she's going to share photos of her trip to China and tell us all about the panda bears. If you don't want to see it, it's okay. You drop. It's an optional 15 minutes. But we're all expressing interest. We're talking. We're sharing. We had two gentlemen from India. They had never been on an island before. They were going to Hawaii. And they said, I just cannot comprehend I can drive for 1 hour and go from ocean to ocean on an island. He said, I was in the middle of India. It took me 12 hours to drive to the beach. He said, I can't comprehend this. So we pulled up maps of Hawaii. We're showing him where to go, restaurants. He came back and he's sharing all these great photos. I asked people to share, don't tell me you're from India. What town are you from? Oh, Bangalore. Are you from Electric City? Or are you more downtown? Are you more, you know, the areas of Bangalore? Well, yeah. What area are you from? Let's pull up the map, pull up Google Map. Let's look at the streets. The other trick I do is I create a slide with everyone's face. Oh, I wish I had time to show you this video. My current team, I've created a video and I took all of their faces and I used a Macintosh with their trailer. You can make movie trailers. And I used a kind of like a pirate adventure movie. And it was, you know, I searched the world to find the best people who are going to work at Agile and really know their stuff. And it was intermixed with all of their photos and the big dum da 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 dum da 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 dum music in the background. And they were so excited because this is the way I introduced the team to my boss and my peers. The video was 1 minute and 4 seconds long, but the energy that 1 minute and 4 seconds generated was huge. They're still talking about it. 4 months later, they still talk about this video. Here's the other funny thing. That consulting company, they told all of their friends who are located at all these other companies. They all know about me. They all know about my company. There's a waiting list. People ask to be part of my team to come work at my place, which means I'm attracting the best talent from the consulting company. It's a win-win-win-win. It's all over the place. My peers, my boss, they love it because, wow, this was exciting. And they're sharing it with their friends, this crazy video of me introducing the team. So it's techniques like this. It's doing crazy things, unexpected things, sharing about each other, hearing about each other. We had one person who had a new baby. So I sent a card to all of the sites. Everyone signed the card and we finally mailed it to him when his son was born. He never had that before in his entire career. And he was almost in tears. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I can't believe you sent me this. This is great. We had a lady in India who solved a very difficult, we had a person who, from India, she solved a very technical problem. And the senior engineers could not solve it for 2 or 3 weeks. She solved it in 2 days. I said, okay. I went out, I bought a card. And again, I mailed it to all the sites. Finally, we mailed it to her in India. Now, it took over a month to finally get to her. But you know what? We all knew the day she got that card. You could hear it in her voice. It was like, you know, hello. Oh, Mayhawk. Did something happen? Well, yes, it did. Oh, what happened? I got the card. To her, that was gold. No one ever sent her a card. The customer never, ever sent anyone on that team a card of thank you. And we signed it with everybody, all 22 people. And it also brought our team together because for 1 month, we're all whispering, did she get the card? I don't know. Should I say something? No, don't say anything. What do we do? How do we know? What do we do? And then when she finally got the card, it was like a pin popping the balloon. Yeah, we're all cheering and we're celebrating. And it's a card. It cost me $2, €2. But the energy that it generated, the excitement it generated for 1 month, that's all we talked about and whispered to each other. That's how you create fun. And hopefully that goes back to Yolanda's question about how do we build motivation in a team? It's all these kinds of things. Where do I come up with them? I make them up. I read books. I see things online. I go, oh, that's interesting. How can I apply that to my team? Crazy stuff. And I'm sorry, I'm not hiring from the Ukraine yet. I'm sorry. My apologies. But yeah, happy to follow up or talk with anybody else afterwards. I speak all the different times from one Anna to the other. That's great. Yeah, Anna, we'll talk on the side. Okay, give me a call. Give me a call. But now hopefully too, like I said, I want to get back to the Ukraine. I loved it. I had a great time there. I have a lot of photos that I've taken, and I loved it, enjoyed it. Great food. My wife is part Polish and Ukrainian. Her family came to the US over 100 years ago. My family came from Italy over 100 years ago. So it's always fun when you finally remake connections like that. So it was fun for me to finally get over there. She's definitely coming with me next trip. She couldn't travel with me last trip, but and her family is from Lviv. They're from Lviv and Krakow, so fairly close. I understand that's where the largest site is for soft serve. So yeah, we'll definitely have to stop in and say hello on my next trip out over in Eastern Europe. Any other questions? Any other comments? Come on, you're taking it easy on me. This is too simple. You're giving me easy questions. You're not challenging me enough here. Anything else? What's that one question you really want to ask, but you're hesitant to ask it? I know there's one more question out there. Anyone else? Anyone want to take the challenge? Yes, actually, I was in Warsaw. I had a great time in Warsaw. I have some friends from Session. They came over. I tell you what, no offense to other countries, but the people in Poland, they know how to party. It was the one conference where everyone was incredibly dressed up. I was surprised. All dressed up. They had a band. We were dancing at night. I mean, it's just the suits, the ties, the dresses, I was surprised. I was very impressed with the conference I went to in Warsaw, and I have some colleagues over there as well. So yeah, I love the kleszczyki and borscht, and oh yeah, I love all the food. Easiest way to change your mind. Yep, sounds good. All right, it sounds like some of the questions are wrapping up here. So I don't know if Anna, I'm handing it back to you, whoever wants to take it back, but again, thank you very much. Appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully we'll be meeting and talking again in the future.
Mike, thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, no, and I got to remember my Polish now, so you got me confused. So dzień dobry, that's hello, and then oh my God, how do I say goodbye in Polish? I'm drawing a blank. This is horrible. Somebody's got to remind me. Do widzenia. Do widzenia. There we go.
Tanya, you unmuted yourself, probably.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. It was a great webinar, and we enjoyed having you. And I hope you're with us for the first, but not the last time. And see you in Ukraine, definitely.
Yeah, I hope so. Ukraine, Poland, and wherever else. I'm like I said, in 2019, I was in 16 countries. Last year, I was in Bulgaria too, by the way, Petya. I loved Sofia. I had a great time in Sofia. But last year, this year, 0 countries. I'm very sad, but I was in 16 countries the year before, Dubai and Japan and Australia and New Zealand and Manila and all through Europe. So yes, I'm looking forward to traveling again. Definitely want to get back to Bulgaria too.
Thanks also to our participants for your time and so many questions. And really, we will share the profile of our speaker, of Mike, in our follow-up letter, so you can find him and add to your friend list and follow. So we'll keep in touch. I will send you the information about our further events and some probably discounts from our project, and we'll be in touch. So have a nice evening.
Yep. Good night, all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.